Back in session with Professor P. We are going on to chapter 2 in archaeology. Sort of research methods and how we discover the past. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. If you want, you could follow along with your concept sheets. They're located in your module. All right, let's start with the 4 kinds of evidence. 4 kinds of evidence we talk about in the field of archaeology are artifacts, ecofacts, fossils, and features. All right, and we're going to get to those in a minute. What about sites? Sites are basically where there is human activity, and human activity existed in the past, right? We want to look at campsites and, ritualistic sites and all kinds of sites when we talk about that. But it's typically where known activity has been and humans have been living in the past, all right? There's 2 basic methods for finding sites: pedestrian survey and remote sensing. Pedestrian survey is basically just walking around and locating sites. You sort of know that there's sites located in the area. Maybe other archaeologists have been there. So you sort of walk around and see if there may be a human activity there, okay? You're basically walking around. Remote sensing is more high-tech. You're looking at sort of a high-tech way of finding sites, looking at electronic magnetic fields in the ground. I always tell my students, think about when you're at the beach and you see the people, having those electronic sort of ways of finding, rings and money, and that's sort of a high. Remote sensing is a very high way of doing that, right? It's on sort of a big scale, and basically what it looks at in the ground, if there's something that's off, then there could be an artifact there could be something in the ground. All right, let's get to excavation. Excavation is always messy. It's always dirty, and it's always destructive. But excavation we want to look at is really the careful removal of all of these kinds of evidence, right? Whether it's artifacts or ecofacts or fossils or things like that, right? And it's really recording it as well. All right, let's get to conservation. That's the main goal. Conservation is really where we want all of our stuff to stop decaying. We want to reverse the deterioration process. We want to clean it. We want to dry it. We want to control it so that we can have it for the future, okay? Reconstruction is basically like a puzzle. You're putting things back together again. That's reconstructing. That's what we want to do. I mean, if you look at King Tut, right? We want to sort of, preserve him. We want to keep him chemically treated. We want to, put him back together. We don't want him deteriorating at such a fast rate. We don't have him to study for the future. Okay, so that becomes very important to sort of understand. Use-where analysis. Use-where analysis is basically trying to determine how a tool was used by examining the edges of the tool. So if you look at the edges of a tool, was it used for butchering? Was it used for warfare, right? Was it used to cut down trees, right? So by looking at the edges, it could give us an idea about how people were using it in the past. All right, let's get back here. An artifact. When we look at an artifact, we're looking at something that's human-made, something that was made or modified by humans. And most stuff in your house is probably an artifact: a pen, a pencil, a pen, a fork, a plate, a table, right? All of those clothing. What do you think we could learn from artifacts? First, typology. We could learn the shape of an artifact. We could learn the age of an artifact. We could learn where the culture of the artifact, right? We could learn if it was within an exchange system. Artifacts actually can tell us a lot. An artifact becomes very important because it could really put something in the context of the culture, all right? What do you think we could learn from ecofacts or fossils? Ecofacts are something and items that are naturally occurring in the environment, like a plant or a bug, right? Something like that. Fossils, quite different, because when we look at a fossil, we're looking at something that has been preserved, right? We're looking at, it could be human remains that have been preserved from the past. What do you think we could learn from these things? We could learn a lot of things from artifacts and ecofacts and fossils and features. But ecofacts and fossils, we could learn about like the environment, what kind of environment they were living, what kind of food they were eating. We could learn about how old something was. We could learn, if we have a fossil, the DNA. I mean, look at the Iceman. We recovered a lot of fossils from the Iceman, and the Iceman was able to even tell us, that, he had disease, right? He was diseased. His bones were deteriorating. We could look at teeth and tell the age of something. There's so much that we could learn from. And that's what's so fun about the field of archaeology, and make sure you're keeping along with the book as well, because they'll give you examples and a lot of fun ones. But when we look at organisms, it could really tell us a lot about like the environment they lived in, how they died, when they died. Ecofacts tell us a lot about the environment too. What can we learn from features? Remember, features are not removable. A feature could be a pyramid, it could be a building, it could be anything like that. They're very hard to move, but features can tell us. Let's take the pyramids. It could tell us about the culture, the religious ideology. It could tell us simply about the materials that were used, labor force. If you take Tikal, which is in Guatemala, and it was cities of pyramids, we learned about, social stratification. We learned about gender roles. We learned what, areas were used for, the ball courts, right? All of these things can give us a deeper idea about the culture. All right, moving on with our concept sheet. List the ways we could date evidence. We could date evidence in a lot of ways. The two main ways to do this is by doing relative and absolute dating. Relative and absolute dating can be used in conjunction with each other, but it could tell us how old something is. It could tell us the age of something, right? And within that, we have lots of different kinds of dating, whether it's tree ring dating, whether it's thermoluminescence dating, and they talk about that in your book, the various kinds of dating. All right, there's two kinds of explanations that we use in the field of science, okay? And these two kinds of explanations we use are associations or relationships is the first one. The second one is theories. Association or a relationship just states how something is related, like a brother and a sister are related. A theory explains that relationship or association in a complex way. So we use various theories in the field of science, right? Even Darwin's theory of natural selection is just a theory. So what's very important is we have to have those two kinds of explanations. The first one is an association or relationship. The second one is a theory to explain in a complicated way. So if you say, okay, the association is there's a brother and a sister related, the theory would say how they're related. Were they raised with the same parents, right? Was there an adoption? Were they step? Were they half? Did they live in the same area? It then sort of makes it and answers those questions in a complicated way. Falsification is just proving a theory is wrong. It's sort of a rite of passage in the field, right, of science. Operational definition is just explaining the procedure, defining your procedure. And ethnography is just a written description of the culture. Participant observation is very unique to our field because that's what we do. Participant observation is actually going to the field and doing all the work, like asking questions, living with the people, taking part in their ceremonies, right? Doing survey sampling, right? Doing all that stuff that we do. Field work is just a term we use to say we go to the field. That's it. It just says we go to the field, right? It's the cornerstone. It's the heart of anthropology and archaeology. Ethnohistory is the last thing on this concept sheet. And basically what ethnohistorians do is they don't actually live with current people. What they do is they live with the documents and they write about cultures from documents. So their field work is in a library, going to government offices, reading trader notes or diary notes. So they don't actually live with modern people today. They actually look at all the writings and then they do an ethnography. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed chapter 2, which really focused on archaeology. I hope you guys have a great day. Please stay safe. Please stay healthy. Professor Padilla, I'm out.